I'm going to speak for about 15 or 20 minutes on the Tourism Enterprises action of the GeoparkLIFE programme. I have to hold the mic because I need to see my presentation, so if I'm in anyone's way, I'll try to stand back. The Tourism Enterprises action has a few key strands to it. One is to help increase the environmental good practice within tourism enterprises in the area. The second is to help improve the economic impact of those enterprises. And the third is about building strategic planning and strategy capacity within the group to ensure longevity after GeoparkLIFE. This programme, the Tourism Enterprises Action, has focused pretty much exclusively on the Burren Ecotourism Network, which is a membership, a core membership of nearly 50 businesses, and an associate membership bringing it up to about 65 at this stage. The relationship between the Geopark and the Burren Ecotourism Network preceded GeoparkLIFE, and kind of the Tourism Enterprises Action started with strong momentum behind it, given the work that had gone on between the Geopark and the network before that. That was the reason for working with the network directly. It was a follow-on from work that was going on, and rather than trying to spread the resources across the entire region to work with those businesses that were already engaged in sustainable tourism development. A key part, our approach in tourism enterprises is the three pillars of sustainability, and the GeoparkLIFE programme acknowledges that sustainability includes environmental sustainability, social sustainability, and economic sustainability, and that all three of those pillars need to be strong to create a truly strong or sustainable destination. Today we're focusing, as Carla mentioned, on sustainable standards, particularly on the area of environmental practice, training and supports through the GeoparkLIFE programme. But that's not to acknowledge the very important strands. We have parallel strands going in networking and referrals within the businesses, and in a marketing plan and strategy for the overall destination. So the Geopark Code of Sustainable Practice for Tourism is a key output of the GeoparkLIFE programme. As I said, the relationship with the network preceded GeoparkLIFE, and we had a lot of learnings from previous experiences with certification and standards. We might be the best informed group in the country on environmental standards at this stage. The Ecotour, it was actually the Geopark office that set the process in place of establishing an ecotourism network, and a core principle of that from the very outset was the adhering to and demonstrating high standards of environmental good practice in terms of tourism. It started out as external certification, third-party certification being the standard, and actually Ireland's Ecotourism Ireland standard grew out of a pilot within the Burren in 2010 or 11, I'm not sure which year. GeoparkLIFE kicked off with a study, a benchmarking study on many aspects of the programme, but one of which was certification and training. And while certification had a lot of benefits in terms of standards, it also had thrown up some challenges for the area. In particular, things like there are many different certification bodies, there are many different schemes. It was very hard with a large group to find, it was impossible to find a standard that suited everyone, but the fact that people were working on different standards makes any kind of comparison or a common level of understanding or practice very, very difficult to achieve. It also meant, because all the certifications were external and they themselves operate to different standards, that a lot of our attention was being diverted outside of the Burren, outside of the area, to the requirements of more global, more generic schemes. It also meant we were subject to any changes that might happen in those schemes may not have reflected things that were important to us here in the Burren. And there were other things as well, but the main thing related to the transferability of the information and any kind of common understanding, and the fact that you might be meeting 56 criteria of a certification scheme that may or may not be really relevant to what we were doing here. A key principle with the Burren Ecotourism Network as well was that, or from the Geopark from the outset, in creating a destination, was to be as inclusive as possible and to include all businesses that make up a destination. Not just the businesses who already had very good high standards, and not just accommodation, which tended to be the focus in other areas that had gone for a destination-led approach. So in the heat of the hunt, we decided to set up our own code of practice through the GeoparkLIFE programme. And what this set out to do was to almost make a stepping stone on the way to certification for businesses. It was to provide a common code for businesses across the network, irrespective of their size and irrespective of their area of activity. Because it is a very diverse network, from very large organisations to single person operations. It was designed to give us a common bond and a common level of understanding and a common language to speak about the process, and then to get people on the journey, to allow people to engage on the sustainability journey, irrespective of where they were starting. If we had only stuck with certified businesses, it would be the case of preaching to the choir. You would only ever be dealing with people who reach high standards, rather than creating a process that anybody with an interest in doing this could join at the point that they were ready to join at that point in time. So we set up the code of practice through GeoparkLIFE. We set up a training program to support the code, and then a key part is the sharing of good practice and best practice. We held, we have many ways of sharing the practice, but the one I'll speak about today is the GeoparkLIFE Awards, which we held last year. We'll hold again next year to recognise the best examples of good practice for the code. I'll show you some of those in the presentation. I should also welcome our three panellists here, which are winners of the GeoparkLIFE Awards last year. Three of the particular awards: Brie Fahy from Cafe Banana Ice Cream, who won the Water Management Award; Anthony Maloney from Doolin Hostel, who had won the Best Improvement Award, having taken over the family business and an old building and setting about the greening of that, for want of a better word; and Carrie Ryan from the Bobhill Centre, which won the Best Overall Sustainable Business Award. There are a couple of videos here as well from our other winners, so you should get a good flavour of it. The guys here will answer any questions you have at the end. As soon as I plan to win, they'll be happy to answer questions if we have them after this. So this is you won't be able to read that. You will find this on our website at burrengeopark.ie. That is one of the outdoor providers. It's a 10-point code of practice. There's some of the delegates of most of the Burren Tourism Network in one of our first workshops relating to the code of practice. We have two versions. We have one for buildings, businesses that are primarily based in buildings, and then businesses that are primarily based in the outdoors. I'll run through the points that are there that we included, and this followed a review of all the various certification schemes that we could analyse to whittle it down to what we would call the core basic fundamentals. It's important to know that this is not certification and doesn't claim to be certification or try to be certification, but these items are common to any of the certification schemes that we did examine, with the view, like I said, that any work done on this would make it easier for businesses to then go through the process of achieving certification. The first thing was the understanding and information of the Geopark region is related to interpretation, that businesses undertake to be very well informed themselves and also to ensure their staff are very well informed. That everyone would adhere to the principles of leave no trace and provide a training for everyone in that. That the businesses would make an active and tangible contribution to conservation in the Geopark region, specifically to the Geopark. That each business would have a documented environmental policy and action plan that identified its targets for improvement, and that those would be available for visitors on things like their website and their premises. That there would be a system for measuring and monitoring energy, water, wastewater and waste management, and the targets for improvement would be set on each of those. Sustainable travel that the business would do would promote sustainable travel to its visitors, and also to include ways in their businesses to promote that, and that there would be a green purchasing policy in place. So those were the 10 key points, and sometimes I think that's quite easy. I think any of the businesses in the room, there's a number of members of the Burren Tourism Network here who tell you it's far from easy to tick all those boxes and to demonstrate and show that. So it's great credit to all of them that did come through it. This is the first of our videos. This is a video from the winner of the Energy Management Award, which is also the Bobhill Centre.
Having undertaken the Geopark Code of Practice for Sustainable Tourism, the Bobhill Centre did an energy audit in 2012. The resulting plan led to the installation of a wood gasification boiler to provide for their heating needs.
It was fitted about a year ago. The Eco Aim was 65 kilowatt wood burning boiler. The wood to be burned at the moment is locally grown spruce from the plantations.
The whole system is about 24,000, and that was connecting it up to the original system. This is forest and spruce, it came through. these bolts, these inputs on the logs splitter. Put the log in there, and it comes down and splits it. So we end up with bolts of timber.
Hot water cylinder thermostats, zoned heating controls, and thermostatic radiator valves control the heating efficiently.
This big boy here is a 3,000 litre buffer tank, which at the moment the boiler has heated up, and that through a system of various time blocks controlling pumps will pump the water to whichever set of buildings is required. Financially, I would say if you could run on wood 12 months of the year, we would probably be spending a good 75% less, probably a quarter of the cost of the oil.
The new wood burning system has allowed Volcano to disengage from the loop of spiralling oil prices and break their own dependence on fossil fuels.
Okay. I should say each of the 10 award winners, part of their prize was a video of what they had won for, and a case study. We'll find the videos and the case studies also on our geopark.ie, and I think that they're all well worth a look. As I mentioned, there is another code of practice for outdoor providers. When I say another, it's largely the same with a slight different shading and emphasis. There's the key points of difference. There are elements relating to the number of visitors per guide that a guide would bring with them, generally smaller numbers, that they would work with like-minded partners in terms of they may work with people outside of the network for food, for accommodation, for other guiding, that they would work with people who were equally showing good standards in environmental practice, and encourage them as much as possible to move towards code and certification. That their interpretive information, there's particular requirements about the quality of the interpretive information, and that their monitoring and measurement systems relating to waste, wastewater and energy would be appropriate to themselves and their needs. Many didn't have a physical premises, and so the requirement in that would be, I guess, sensible in terms of outdoor activity providers. I have another video now to show you, which is our winner for Leave No Trace, one of the elements. You'll see from our code that it balances the hard nuts and bolts of sustainability that are around measuring and monitoring with what we tend to call the softer elements like leave no trace, interpretation, engagement with each other, promotion to visitors. And here's a video of the Leave No Trace winner, which is Burren Nature Sanctuary, and Mary Birmingham, the owner of that, is here. You can meet her later at the networking if you wish.
Burren Nature Sanctuary is set on 50 acres of karst limestone farmland. It is a family-focused interpretive centre for the natural history of the Burren, where visitors learn about the flora and fauna of the region.
We went on a Leave No Trace school tour with the children from the National School, and they were learning about the Leave No Trace principles and the natural history of the Burren.
After undertaking the Leave No Trace module of the Geopark Code of Practice training, Mary Birmingham developed the Leave No Trace school tours with Dermot Kelly. Tours teach the Leave No Trace principles along with the natural history of the Burren through a trip to the sanctuary through post lesson plans.
We explored all the things that what children might know coming into the sanctuary. We worked on what the teacher or school would want the children to learn, and we brought in kids to where the children and walked around and explored what they were interested in.
So we decided on a school tour, and we have been to other big farms in different areas. So we decided we'd stay local, and we rang Mary, and it was all organised. So she sent us on a presentation to look at before we came. And so we went through the idea of Leave No Trace, which means they keep you not to leave any rubbish around, not to pick the flowers, and to respect animals.
I was very aware that I wanted it to translate into classroom, that we would have a project that we're doing when we go back to school, we'd like a PowerPoint on what Leave No Trace was about, and as soon as they arrived in here from the buses and the cars, we talked to them about what impact will they have on our nature sanctuary.
So you're being very good at respecting animals and wildlife when travel on durable ground. So the only person allowed off the path is Whiskey, who's a mountain goat. So she can climb on the rocks, but nobody else can climb on the rock.
See the man door?
These are most powerful parents. We have nature walks through five of the Burren habitats. We have hazel woodlands, ash woodlands, orchid-rich grasslands. We have a disappearing lake. This lake disappears because there's a big river underneath the lake, and when the tide goes out, the lake falls away.
Obviously, reflecting afterwards was important, but unless you get the children a chance to go explore, touch, and they come back and talk to you about it, if they've never felt grass or never felt a boat, they can't tell you how to care for it.
So when you go back over, you want to see what you learn to learn themselves, what you see. I took photographs of the people things that the rubbish will hopefully on my board.
Liam, well done, Liam. Carol. So although we have young children doing the tour, it is also for our tourists that may be coming on the Wild Atlantic Way to leave armed with the skills to enjoy and negotiate the Burren, but with the trade principles in mind.
And it's like they don't actually see the flowers out of our rivers, they're in the pictures, the books, there's a big one, see them out, yeah, fantastic. And to the abandons, yeah, really short, better than just.
The Leave No Trace School Tours added extra revenue with 1,000 children undertaking the tour in 2014.
So far, as I say, we're midway through the program. We've seen lots of benefits of the code of practice. Some of them you see there. I think one of the key benefits is that the code of practice shows what real businesses can do in their business. They don't have to crack the entire sustainability nut to achieve excellence in individual elements of the code, and to show to other businesses who might see those videos and ones, yeah, I could have done that. It's okay. And it also showed, I think the balance of it is good. The first video there shows, real cost savings up to 75% in that particular case from implementing the measuring, monitoring things, to more like Mary's, where you can introduce a whole new visitor experience, a whole new revenue stream based around the concepts and ideas that we included in the training program. So we feel there's true transferability in the code from that point of view. Key learnings from the process is the group dynamic is really important. We had a 10-point training workshop program to go with this. The program was developed in very close collaboration with two of the partners of GeoparkLIFE, one being the environment section of Clare County Council. I see Tracy here, she would have been part of this as well, where we worked very hard on, or they worked very hard on the policy, the regulations, the tools that are available through the agency, bringing those into the training groups and creating that interface between the businesses and the agencies. That was really, really valuable. As well as Culture Ireland, who helped as well with a lot of the training that came through this. Having people in a room together is a really important part of this process. While you can go away and do this at home by yourself, the sharing of ideas, the sharing of knowledge and momentum and motivation that people get from each other is really important. Measuring and evaluating, some would say, or some people would have said that this is an awful lot to do just to get people working on it. Could you not just adopt the code and go with that? Certainly the feedback from the businesses and from us is that having to do the measuring and having to do the evaluation and having that externally evaluated is the thing that really makes you do something in the business, and it's the thing that lets you know how well you did, what it was worth to your business, and moving on. So we don't think that's a stage that we dispensed with. Sharing good practice. For us, the awards night and the videos have been a great way of sharing best practice. A lot of sharing goes on in a much more informal way as well. And the case studies, as I say, we've 10 at the moment, we will have more by the end of the programme after the next tranche. Special considerations around transport and activity. I mentioned earlier, it's hard to find a one-size-fits-all approach. In particular, even in the general way that we did it, transport is not really covered within any certification scheme at the moment, and we found ours quite challenging for that. We don't want to ignore transport by any means, because that's a key part of the overall destination experience, so we will be working in the next while on adapting the code and kind of standards that are going to be suitable for transport. And the same for activity providers, and a lot of the sustainable certification has requirements that may be beyond the scope of small providers. Managing the cost of the training, we've run the program now 3 times, having previously, prior to GeoparkLIFE, there being 2 programs on standards which were funded by Leader and by Culture Ireland. The costs have fallen dramatically from the very first one down to quite a low level now, and we will, particularly in cooperation with Clare County Council and the Environment Section, there are similar resources in other councils around the country, has really helped us manage the costs of the training on that, and we would have recommendations on that. Overall, it's a building block approach. We've learned a lot over the last few years. Our third program we ran was much more streamlined than the first program. The feedback from the third group is that we are pretty close to having it to where it should be for any destination to take it as a transferable model. I think one of the things for the codes, the first few years are pre-life as well. We spent an awful lot of time talking about standards and certification and the right one and the wrong one and the challenges and the advantages and disadvantages. One thing I believe the code has done, because every member of the network has now gone through it, is we've also no need to have that conversation anymore. It has kind of addressed that. There is a common language, everyone's gone through the same process, the same evaluation process, as I say, irrespective of their size. So it's a real common bond and a common shared experience, and it's kind of, I think, freed up the energy that was going on wondering about certification and standards to do other things that are more valuable to the Burren directly and giving feedback directly to the Burren. And that was kind of the big miss when we were dealing with external standards. And I'm just going to run through some of the examples here. One of the items on the code is contribution to conservation, for example. And we found the first time around that businesses, their understanding or their definition of what a contribution to conservation meant varied widely. And we also had 40 or 50 different small contributions to conservation that varied from, somebody planting a small forest to somebody making a contribution to a magazine and everything in between. So one of the things that has happened out of within the group is that there would be 2 or 3 large conservation activities that the whole group would get involved in, and that would be a direct payback to the area in the Burren. One of those is Moher, which is done in conjunction with the Burren Conservation Volunteers. It took place in November, where the businesses go out into the landscape and try to give back to the farmers who own the landscape. There's been 2 so far, and we have great hopes that this is something that will continue well into the future. This year, the job was cutting back some of the hazel scrub at a visited site near Carmen and Robert Cassidy's farm. Last year it was a wall building exercise. There was more than 40 businesses out and about at that, and that's a true strong contribution and give back. Here's another example of, this is one of the training programs on sustainable transport, for example, which again was an element of the code, being an element of the code. We ran a workshop to support it, and this is Roisin Garvey and Tashka, who we invited to come and speak to the group. And that's an example where we would have, it was kind of what can we do about sustainable transport? There's no sustainable transport in the Burren, might as well forget that one. And Roisin kind of really came in and shook us out of that and kind of said, you can't focus on what you don't have, you must focus on what you do have. And a sustainable transport group has arisen out of that. I think that one was where we had 13 balloons blown up, and Roisin was kind of demonstrating that that's how much carbon is created by the 1 kilometre drive we might drive at a time. One of the ideas that came out of that was the free cup of tea if you cycle to me initiative, which was a lot of members of the network are involved. It does what it says in the tin. If you're a visitor and you cycle here, you get a free cup of tea. It's a nice idea, it communicates a message, it does get visitors interested, it starts a conversation, and it's a lovely idea. The other thing, those are conservation examples, the other thing it freed up, I feel, more space to do is to the marketing and the communication of the destination. Sustainability is a hard thing to communicate to visitors. We've learned that along the way. We've opted to talk about sustainability through the story of activity in the landscape and food in the landscape. And we're seeing great progress on the visitor experiences that are coming out of this group working together. So that was the activity trail, this is the food trail, the idea of farm to fork, and obviously there's a picture of a couple of the awards where that received national and international recognition this year. It's the glue that binds the group. It might be a strong thing to say overall when people in the network know. There's a bit more to it than that, but when you really look at it, the code and the standards have been the one core thing that has held the network from the very beginning. There's been variations of how we've gone about it, but the network and its members have stayed very, very close to that as a real reason. I feel it's one of the things, it really distinguishes this group from any other business group, and I think it's, if we're just a business network, it becomes just about the money, which quickly becomes about what I'm getting versus what you're getting, what I'm putting in versus what you're putting in. When there's a larger purpose, which is about the conservation of the region, it tends to transcend a lot of those arguments and it tends to keep the group focused on the bigger picture. Our overall strategy for the destination I mentioned earlier is economic, social, and environmental. Here's, I guess, a way we've started to look at it. Standards and conservation have always been the baseline, the core platform on which everything else is being built. This year we're seeing a lot in terms of visitor impact on that and recognition of other things. But since 2008 and for the first few years, this is the only thing we were talking about, and it's taken a while to get to this. On top of that, the networking I referred to, the group working together for the destination as a whole, supporting each other, referring each other, is the next building block. And then after that, the idea of marketing, communicating this externally to our visitors, where we start talking about accommodation, food, attractions and activities. And it took us quite a while to get to this because accommodation, food, attractions and activities is what every tourism destination competes on. And because you're a sustainable tourism destination, doesn't mean you don't compete in these variables. You absolutely are competing in these variables head on with everybody else. The difference is, I suppose, they're below the line. We sometimes call it under the bonnet within the network. The standards and conservation are the USP. It is what's keeping this particular group together. It's not an above the line, below the line, and above the line. Above the line is what we're talking to our visitors about. And that may or may not include the standards because we're talking to visitors about what they want to know, where to eat, where to stay, what to do. But if the rest of it is in order, then we can be sure we're keeping our three pillars strong. This is a quote from earlier this month from Paula Keneally, who's Ireland's leading travel journalist. People often ask me how to get their towns and regions on the tourism map. What can they do to penetrate the media, boost social shares, and get on the visitors' radar? I have a pretty standard answer now. I suggest a short break in Burren, which is a great endorsement from a marketing perspective. He went on to say in the article that Burren really is now best practice. I'm not putting that up there for our own self-congratulation. It's because that's a massive breakthrough for a sustainable destination to get that kind of endorsement without them mentioning sustainability. 3 years ago, we would have maybe gotten coverage and we were talking a lot about what we were doing as a destination, how good we were, good practice, what the businesses were doing, and forgetting that that wasn't what the visitors want to hear. Now you have somebody like that saying, irrespective of sustainability, this destination is top of the pile in Ireland in terms of what it's doing. And it's doing that without compromising on the standards, without any compromise in the standards, and in fact with considerable and ongoing investment by all the businesses in the standards. And that's a big achievement to make that breakthrough and a sign of kind of a mature destination. The transferable outcomes from GeoparkLIFE when the programme finishes will be quite tangible and practical. The code of practice will be, as I said, we have 2 already, the buildings and the activities. We will have a transport code of practice as well with a set of guidelines. We will have a code of practice manual, which will be usable by individual businesses or by destinations who are hoping to follow a similar model. There will be a toolkit which will include templates for measuring and monitoring and reporting. We will document our workshop support programme and identify the types of trainers, where those trainers might be found and where costs might be saved. And we will have guidelines on evaluation as well. So they will be the outcome when you're back to hear the final programme. I think that's it in a nutshell. So if you have any questions, we'd be happy to take them.
Well, just a question I asked, given the success and the buy-in, if you like, on this very striking network, and my question was, is there anything similar to this anywhere else now?
Is there anything similar to the network?
Yeah, and how it works, and the way the business is.
To the best of my knowledge, there would be a network that is as active on so many fronts in terms of all the different angles of conservation and the size of the network, working on conservation hand in hand with marketing. To the best of my knowledge, no, there's certainly no network that has done this level of training and standards and demonstration of standards. Even on a tourism development network, we were told this would kind of be cited as a best case example for other destinations in terms of working together as well. So not that more.
Do you foresee a network of buses like that throughout the Burren to try and better control the number of visitors in the area and the car movements and the damage that can cause?
Well, within the network, I think it's something Zena might be mentioning in her presentation as well, but and I might ask Carrie from the Conservation Advocacy Group if there's anything on that. The bus you're referring to that goes between Burren and the National Park is operated by the National Parks and Wildlife Service, and it's currently a free service that operates during the summer. In an ideal world on a wish list, we would have Creed, as you actually has thought a good bit about this, is a hop on and hop off bus around the area. There isn't a place we can see where that's going to happen quickly or in the short term, but would require considerable investment and probably a pilot stage as well. Creed, did you have any thoughts on that?
It is something we discuss quite regularly in the network, is the subject of sustainable transport, and looking at having a hop-on, hop-off bus going round the Burren, primarily stopping only at our own businesses, was one of the thoughts put out there. And if we had an electric bus, would be absolutely wow of the thing. But to look at this from an economic point of view, it's a long way down the road, but it will be an absolutely wonderful service to have going on the Burren, is a bus that people could get on, get off at their ease, and would make a huge difference to congestion at major sites. But it's a subject that is not developed more than that. Looking more at electric bikes and cycling seems to be more economical project at the moment. Harry might have more views on.
Yeah, and you might have about communicating with visitors on transport has been a big part of what you guys worked on as well.
What I was going to talk about is the program that we tried last year, which was a walking program whereby we would have buses picking up people from set points and taking them into the Burren to go on a guided walk. The idea was to promote the guided walks in the Burren, as well as to look at sustainable transport into the Burren. But what we find that the scheme wasn't a success because so many people want to take their own cars. They want to go exploring on their own. So we maybe need to look at this from another angle and look at some other way of encouraging people to actually use sustainable transport to get into the Burren.
I know there's various businesses, like examples of incentivising either with discounts or with rewards for people using sustainable transport, and kind of advocating and speaking to visitors about sustainable transport has been the approach. But yeah, the big picture is bigger than that, I guess. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Since the outset of this programme, since it initiated, the major change which has occurred is the Wild Atlantic Way and the impact of that particular, whether you call it a brand or identity, that has been developed by Forge Ireland for the area, as well as along the whole coast, west coast of Ireland. So because of that, you're going to increase the number of visitors. And the issue in terms of carrying capacity. So have these variables, or will they be incorporated into your practice over the next number of years? And how might they manifest themselves?
I'll ask Anthony to join in this in a minute. The question of the carrying capacity, from our point of view, yeah, the Wild Atlantic Way is a major development. It was out of Forge Ireland debrief on it yesterday, and the danger of numbers, large numbers, I think Carl referred to, so increased numbers without increased revenue, increased impact without increased payback to the communities is definitely a consideration. How it's built into the code is around how businesses manage their visitors, and we've many internal discussions on this. It's like the activity providers having a maximum number of visitors that they will take at a time. It's about creating products that maybe are a little bit high end, require you to stay a bit longer, but that are managed and executed in such a way that they minimise their impact on the area, or they mitigate and adapt against that either through payback schemes. But we're coming at that from the way businesses create their products and execute the products and the way they influence their visitors. We had an example at a workshop lately where somebody is asked to take 50 people on a walk through the Burren. Somebody in Dublin who's doing the Wild Atlantic Way with 50 people on a bus will do a walk. Perhaps those people don't know the implications of doing that, for example, so that should a business say no to that, or should they say no, I can't because I don't believe in that kind of business. And it's about managing it. What they can do is say, well, I can take 20 of those and I can recommend 2 other guys from my network who would take the other 20. We'll bring them on 2 or 3 alternative routes. So it's about education and about product execution. But I guess it's better to hear from the businesses how you feel that is. Anthony, you're doing right on the Wild Atlantic Way.
Yeah, the Wild Atlantic Way is fantastic. It definitely has brought a lot of people. Or brought a lot of people to the coast or west. There's things of it that, when I look at doing and all this, we are a phenomenal place where I moved home after being away for almost 20 years. And luckily there are an awful lot of places, nowhere like North Clare, that what it has, and all the things from the food, the attractions, everything. That the only thing that lacks is confidence, realising we can do better than anybody else. And we are actually proving that we are doing things better than anywhere else. But the big thing is asking, when I ask myself every day is, do I want to be part of the destination you go to or go through? And I think that's one part of the Wild Atlantic Way is difficulties of how it's great success, but how do you develop it to keep it as a go-to destination where people will actually stay? Not that it's just an accommodation, but when they stay in the restaurant, they have time to experience it. They have more time to come in and enjoy the interactions they have from where someone's driving through an area. They only have 1 or 2 interactions, whereas they stay in the area, they can have a couple of 100 interactions. So their memory of the areas will be a lot stronger. Managing business numbers in that respect, I know my own business, I reduced my number of events. I took over business 4 or 5 years ago, I got rid of 30% of my stock. By focusing on quality and opposed to quantity, I was able to get better customer service. We were able to get a bit more money. Profitability is better. But the reality is they're leaving, my first years, I had very little money. My biggest impact was on customer experience, where just direct with the customer, because I had more time with less customers, my business grew a lot faster because of recommendations. So the quality of big numbers can be great, but sometimes it's looking at, one of my first bosses ever told me when we were doing stuff, is that turnover is vanity, cash is reality. But when you put it applied to the tourism, like numbers can be vanity. You can look at, but what are you actually getting on? You're looking after what I love about the Burren tourism, I am part of it, is it's all looking after your area and looking after the people. And get people talking to each other, and through that you build strength, and from that you become comfortable and confident in what you have, and you build a much more longer term business that you can have. Hopefully I've moved home to young kids, I'm hoping to hand over my business someday to my kids. I hate to turn over and say, God, we've been living here for a couple of years, and the time I was here, yeah, tourism, I love that quote, but tourism is a fire. It really is. And it's a scary fire to handle, but it can just be so rewarding.
Yeah. For tourism numbers, it came up yesterday. Worldwide tourism success is measured by numbers, the number of visitors that come through. And we're a strong voice and will continue to be a pleading voice about, can we please measure revenue, can we measure length of stay, can we measure spin-off, day 2, day 3. And that's what we measure internally, and we're working as much as possible with agencies to do that. But you're somebody that's very strong tied to tourism on that for sure. So, Joan, have we got time? Joan?
Thanks, Tina. I just wanted to pick up on the point about Fáilte Ireland promoting the Wild Atlantic Way and what it's meant to a business such as ours, which is a ferry business. It's a fantastic brand to sell the qualities of the Wild Atlantic Way. Obviously, we've been concentrating on the large trade shows, which do bring in the group operators, but it's very encouraging to see that Fáilte Ireland have introduced a Wild Atlantic Way Expo, where they're bringing in a different type of operator, somebody who's focusing on, for example, the shoulder season, where their wildlife groups, their eco groups are looking for the tourists like ours, the crews that will bring them out to see birds when they're breeding in early May and September, not in the highly dense times of the year. And that's, just come back to Carol's point about, or Tina, you said about, you're preaching to the conversion, that you don't allow the network to open up to people like ourselves who will be seen as a diesel-driven business. What can we offer in terms of an eco-code practice where we can educate our passengers on conservation, and we can do things like put injectors on our engines to reduce emissions, and so it's all about contributing to it. But I think it's important to know that Fáilte Ireland are very aware of the numbers they're bringing in, and they are encouraging a different type of customer in the long term as well.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Martin, it's the last question, so we'll hand over after that. Our comment.
And you were kindly already doing any questions in the session. Just go back to the sustainable transport and buses. We're on a journey here. There's no really given answer to what we're trying to do. I'm based in Corofin. I run an accommodation business. I'm part of our new tourism network. Sustainable transport is something that's very important to us. But there's one CIE bus per day that comes in and out of Corofin. So from a sustainable transport point of view, it's very, very difficult. But we're trying to develop it. The free bus, which is run by the National Parks and Wildlife Service, is a fantastic asset for the Burren. But you cannot, at this point in time, get into it using sustainable transport means, because there's no link between the main point of ingress, Ennis, and Corofin, where the bus starts at 10 o'clock every day. But we're trying to work on that. This is a journey. But the fact that the bus is there is really, really important. We're trying to keep that bus going and making sure that it's utilised to maximum effect. So it's like what's happened in terms of food in the Burren in the last 3 years. 3 years ago we didn't have a real food story. Now we're winning awards on a national and international level just by going on the journey and going through a process and putting a system in place and bringing people together. So from a sustainable transport point of view, watch what's going to happen in this space in the next 2 or 3 years. I think Owen Hogan is here as well from the walking office. And I think that the West Kerr Railway, when it eventually opens up from Ennis to Corofin and to Ennistimon, is going to open up a whole new customer base for the Burren. But it's very hard to find out any information on that. But again, it's a journey. In 2 years' time, come back and ask the same questions again when you're at the end of this review process.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. That's the key principle of the whole project and the code is it's a journey of continuous improvement, irrespective of where we're starting. So yeah, the sky's the limit probably from here. I'm going to say thanks to Anthony and Breed and Barry.
Just one.
Sorry, Eugene. Yeah.
Just 1 second. Thanks, Tina. Just 1 second. I think, I'm not sure if it was mentioned earlier on, I work with Joan and Dublin Ferries, but we also run in Dublin, so we're kind of deeply immersed in the tourism in Dublin as well, and Dublin is now launching a breath of fresh air, which is a significant departure for Fáilte Ireland. However, the source of most of the coaches, the day trippers that come to the North there is Dublin. It's from Dublin every morning. I think that's the majority of the carbon footprint in North Clare. And there they have a little regard for the impact they're having on North Clare. So I think, it's a bit like looking at ISIS, we go back to the source of the problem rather than dealing with the end result. I think it's worth bearing in mind that the source of all of the day trippers, or 90% of them, is in Dublin, and they have little regard of the impact they're having in our Clare. So I think that's worth considering whatever proposals that the group comes up with in the future in relation to sustainable transport.
Yeah. Thanks, Eugene. It is absolutely an important point. I think it might come up later as well in one of the later presentations. And I think the Wild Atlantic Way question is relevant to that too. More and more, I think the Wild Atlantic Way is going to draw focus on the payback to communities, the impact on communities and the payback on communities, and that conversation is happening exactly along the lines of what Eugene has said. So now I'll draw to a close and I'll say thanks to Carrie and Anthony and Reid and the other members of the network who contributed there as well.